Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about the Gamble House in California. Now, this is part of a new series I'm going to do on great houses. And so we're going to study great houses, what makes them great, why they look awesome, why they're timeless, all these awesome features that we can then incorporate into new houses to make them awesome and great. Follow me today on the Build Show. All right, so the Gamble House, built in Pasadena for the Gamble family, Procter & Gamble, right? They had big money. They would winter in Pasadena. They'd winter in California. The architects are Charles and Henry Green, the Green brothers, okay? Green and Green architecture. Very famous for their furniture, for their architecture. The Gamble House is considered the ultimate bungalow, okay? Now, this is all part of the arts and crafts era, right? This is Frank Lloyd Wright, Gustav Stickley, and the Green brothers out in California were doing the bungalow, prairie school, craftsman architecture, right? So this is turn of the century. It is a rejection of Victorian, right? It is a rejection of the over-ornamentation of the Queen Anne, of the crazy asymmetry and everything else that was going on. So Charles and Henry Green have an interesting story, okay? They grew up in St. Louis and they actually went to a craft school, a trade school, where they learned to work with their hands. Now, I think that is a really key piece of this thing, because you see as we look at this house that craftsmanship is, you know, up here as an 11 on the scale of just incredible workmanship. And apparently they were very involved in the building of these houses and in all the details and how they came together. Now, part of its beauty and part of its timelessness and part of its wonder, right, is the craftsmanship and how they put it together. Now, if we're going to define what a great house is, it's a number of different things. One, it would be timeless, right? It would be something that in different eras it's still appreciated, right? It's okay for a house short term to kind of fall out of favor, but when fashion comes back around, when we look at it with fresh eyes, there's oftentimes an appreciation of that, an appreciation of its beauty. Craftsmanship, right? It was well made. It's beautifully crafted. There's things done in there that, you know, you don't see other places, or the level of craftsmanship is really high. Beauty, right? Just that you stand back and look at it and go, wow, right? You're moved emotionally almost as you look at these houses because they are works of art. So there's a number of things that, you know, put them on this upper scale, but there's also things that we can incorporate into our house. For instance, you'll notice that in a lot of these houses that we're going to look at, the outside speaks to the inside speaks to the outside. In other words, think about some of these houses you go in and it's something on the front, and then you walk inside and you go, where am I? There's a book called The Geography of Nowhere, in that as we build faster and cheaper and everything else, we end up with these houses that are fast and cheap, that all begin to look alike, right? And everything looks the same. And so there's nothing distinctive about it. And so having the outside and the inside speak to one another means that if you're on the outside of a colonial house, you have colonial elements on the inside. English, right? And in this case, it's an arts and crafts, you know, bungalow, right? You still know where you are when you're inside of this house. Now, the Gambles came out to California, and when you compare what the Green and Green was doing with their bungalows versus the other houses of this period, you'll see the period revival things, you'll see some classical things, Victorian things still, 1908, right? Late Victorian stuff. So there's a jumble of different things. This house comes across as completely pure, right? As an arts and crafts element, you see things like a lack of ornamentation, and ornamentation that is there is functional, right? And so you see these long beams that overhang, and these peg joints and these wrapped joints with steel strapping, right? They are decorative, right? But they're also functional. And so as opposed to what was happening in the Victorian era, where you would just see stuff everywhere, right? You would see turnings and balusters and all these different kinds of crazy brackets that were, you know, sometimes weren't even necessary, but were more because, you know, it was more. So you see a real focus on materials. We know that when Charles and Henry Green were in their trade school, their parents moved out. Their dad was a osteopathic doctor, right? He was big into health and fresh air and things like that, which was a popular theme back then. So getting fresh air was really important. They move out to Pasadena. They invite their sons to come out. On the way out there, they stop by the Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Now that was basically the World's Fair at that time. And there they saw a Japanese exhibit, right, of this Japanese pagoda. and they were incredibly inspired by the craftsmanship and the overhanging eaves and the different things that were going on with this Japanese thing. A number of people were moved by that. Frank Lloyd Wright was also moved by that. So you'll see in the Gamble house some Japanese elements, okay? Just standing out front of this house, you know that it's special. You got these big eaves, you got, this cloud lift pattern, which is also part of the Japanese influence, and the house seems to grow up out of the ground. You'll see on the backside, there's these large boulders that turn into bricks, that turn into the patio, and the house kind of rises up out of there. This house is grounded in the earth. It's not painted. These are earth tone colors, right? Just natural wood we're going to let speak to the natural beauty of the wood being the decoration here, not, frilly ornamentation that, isn't necessary. You'll also notice that because these guys got trained in classicism as well, they have the rule of threes happening. And if you look at this fireplace wall, you'll see that there's a short side, and then a large fireplace in the middle. And then once you get the fireplace, the ingle nook, the thing that they've created here, you have a bookcase and a bookcase, and then a fireplace in the center. And so the rule of threes are very active in this house. And so you have not only this organic crafted house, but you also have classicism. That means things are ordered. That means they lay out in a classical sense. There's symmetry, right? So you have this blending of these two things. The other thing that kind of puts it over the top is the furniture. And furniture really isn't part of the architecture, but Green & Green had their own styles of furniture. It was distinctive in that you'd have these wedges and pegs, right? And so they had the mahogany furniture and black ebony wedges and black ebony details that would kind of lock everything together. It speaks to the ethos of what this furniture was all about and what the house was all about. So if you look at just the beams, right? And you see this metal strap. One of the things you can ask yourself when you know you're at a great house is, well, how would I make that today? And so when you look at some of these things and you see these wonderful, wonderful lanterns hung from a beam, hung with a leather strap, right? And then you see the beam and you see it wrapped in metal and these wedges, right? These wedges are going through there that kind of hold it tight together. How would you get it done today, right? And so as you ask yourself that, how would I build this today? And especially this stair that just wraps up and goes around, it's incredible. And so you know you're in a different place. You know you're in a work of art. You know you're in a masterpiece, right? When you begin to ask yourself questions like that. So the other thing is that you'll look at some of the ornamentation. You'll see this tree motif, okay, etched into the wood over a beam. It was very much an outside-in kind of atmosphere and kind of thing that they were creating. All these things, right, as we study great houses, right, are things that you can begin to think about incorporating into your houses, right? You can begin to think about, can we raise the bar of craftsmanship, right? Can we make sure the outside speaks to the inside? Can we build something that is just not, the latest plan, I picked it up, it's copying every other house, but it's really distinctive and different and unique. Not to be different, not a crumpled piece of paper, right? But a house that really stands on its own and is beautiful and wonderful and timeless. So great houses, guys, what do they look like? What are their characteristics? What are their details, right? That's what this series is going to study. We're going to look at great houses and ask ourselves why they're great, right? And hopefully by doing that, we'll begin to understand how we can build great houses ourselves. That's the point of this. As we look at the Gamble house, the incredible craftsmanship, the incredible design ideals that hold the house together, the beauty, right? It's just a stunning location if you've ever been there, and the craftsmanship, the design, all those things kind of kick it up and make it one of the great houses in America. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Sign up for the newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you follow us. All great things we're trying to do here, trying to teach and raise the bar, level of craftsmanship, level of building. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.